Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very long time coming, but we are back in the building. It's been about 2-3 years, and the Forbidden Juice is back in full effect. Yo, I'm so excited and so happy to be back. As you can see, this is not one of the co-hosts that I had before. RJ and, Kaze Sukai and True Function, they are still a part of the Forbidden Juice. They are still going to be on the show, but we're going to be rotating on guests and our our co-hosts every single episode, week, whatever. So you will be seeing them soon. You will also be seeing one other co-host. He is not here today, but he will be there soon. But my friend, please introduce yourself for the people them at home. Let them know who you is.
So I'm Coach Tang. I'm here on the Forbidden Juice to spill everything I know on whatever it is we're talking about.
Yes, sir! Anybody who doesn't know, man, this is my boy Coach Tang, and we have known each other since university, so you know what, let's not age ourselves. Let's not age ourselves and tell them how old we actually are. But yeah, I've known him for ages and ages. One of my best friends in the world. So yeah, it was only right that we get him on the podcast and just chop it up. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's time we run back the old intro. This is the Forbidden Juice, where we spill the juice on all things forbidden. Do you dare take a sip?
Yes, sir.
Let's get into it. So, a reminder about what the Forbidden Juice is all about. So, this is basically a show where we are being our open and honest selves. It's all about showing opinions and talking about topics that are otherwise considered forbidden, taboo, that you don't really want to talk about. These days, a lot of people feel like they're going to get cancelled, or they're going to, basically feel some sorts of repercussions for being able to speak their mind. They feel like they can't speak their mind just because they're going to get cancelled for whatever they say. And I don't think that is right. I feel that we should be able to say opinions that people don't necessarily agree with. And, once you just have it out there, it's something that can be digested on. It can be picked apart and dissected, and you don't have to agree with it, but it's important that we're able to see all sides of the discussion and just be able to have that open and honest discussion. So we're bringing that back with the Forbidden Juice. I would love going forward that if there are people that we are talking about, or situations that we are talking about that people are involved in, I would love to have those people involved in these discussions. So please feel free to holler at us across all of our social media, the Forbidden Juice, and we'll be able to try getting you on the show. But until then, we're just going to be saying our piece as openly, frankly as we're gonna. And, it's all about just having that open discussion, two-way communication as well. It's about listening to everything that's being said, understanding what everything is, all the stuff that is being said, and then being able to just respond to that appropriately. Always be mature about it. We don't do the name calling and all that dumb shit. You feel me? So it's literally just about having those open, honest discussions. And I'm so looking forward to how the Forbidden Juice goes from this point onwards. You feel me? So with that being said, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is trans athletes in sports. Alright, so I'm sure you guys have seen it before, where there is a trans athlete. Usually it is a male that is transitioned into being a female. They go in, they compete, they completely wipe the floor with the competition, and people say that's not fair. So Coach Tang, as a basketball coach, how do you feel about trans athletes in sports? What's your opinion? Do you think anything needs to be done? If so, what do you think should be done? Spill. Let me know what you think, bruh.
I'd say, I've got two opinions on this.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the micro and then there's the macro. So the micro is obviously on a personal level. The macro is obviously grand scheme of things in terms of the way it's organized and way it's structured.
Mm-hmm.
So in the micro, simply put, is I don't really care. If you're trans, if you're straight, if you're whatever, compete, do it. Like at the end of the day, it's about competition, especially at high elite level sports. It's all about competition. We want to see the best athletes perform. All right, so I don't care. Like I said, I don't care no matter what they do or how they identify. If they're the best in their respective field, then by all means compete. Does it provide different kind of advantages or disadvantages? Maybe. We're not too sure. Science isn't exactly we haven't got definitive answers yet. We probably won't do for some time.
Mm-hmm.
In the macro, I think, which obviously in terms of the structure of how we do things, I don't think we should be, allowing them to take part as trans athletes per se, but just as athletes themselves. So
interesting.
instead of it being I'm a trans woman competing in women's category, I am just a basketball player taking part in basketball. So the whole point of it, the whole topic of it, you being trans or not, shouldn't really equate into it.
But then, because we're already divided into male and female, how then would we be able to integrate that approach into it?
So if we go by what is, I should say, the common conception of male, female, and the gender topic, from my understanding, from obviously the more, I should say, modern viewpoint, say that gender and sex are completely separate.
Yeah.
So you can be a male genetically, but obviously if you identify as transgender, then obviously you can identify as a member of whichever gender you wish to be. But then I believe that's where the topic does kind of not match in a sense.
Yeah.
So when sports separates the categories, they do it on that biological front.
Yeah, the sex front, not the gender front.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
So if we're saying biological males in sport are competing in one category and biological females are competing in a separate category, then obviously whatever gender you are, regardless of whatever it is,
Yeah.
the gender which obviously your biological makeup should determine what category you enter into. And then obviously depending on the sport there may be subcategories. So obviously with combat sports you've got the weight classes. So like I said, that's why I think, in my opinion, the topic of it kind of misses the point. So they both have, on both sides of the sides, they have equal, I wouldn't say equal, to say they both have valid points, but I think they're missing the point by focusing on the wrong aspects of the discussion itself.
Yeah. Alright, fair enough. Shit. Well, I mean, that's basically my point. Like my thing is essentially like when it. Okay, first off, like to explain to people at home who might not understand, right? There is a difference between gender and sex. Okay, gender is a societal construct, so that is what the world and everyone around you tells you is a man and tells you is a woman, versus what is male and what is female, right? Which is sex. So sex is male, female, and then gender is man, woman. So for example, back in the day, men used to be the one that wore tights, but then society has changed so that now it's mainly women that wear tights. And that over there is a prime example of how things can change in what defines a man and what defines a woman. And so as society has progressed, the definitions of what is a man and what is a woman has changed, evolved, yada yada, this and that, to the point now where it is now a thing where people can just, switch genders, and people can be, or even identify as neither of the genders, you know what I mean? Like non-binary. So, you got man, woman, gender fluid, non-binary. I do not claim to know all of them, by the way. So
there's way too many to know.
There's way too many to know.
And the list keeps growing.
And the list keeps fucking growing, bro. So, that is like gender, right? Whereas sex is simple, just the XY chromosomes that you're made up of. You're either XX or you XY. I want to say that XY is boys and XX is girls. I can't remember though.
I can't remember off the top of my head, to be fair.
It's something.
It's one of the two.
It's something like that, isn't it? So yeah, just to get that out of the way. Also, I probably should put this. We're like 10 minutes into the video, but like, the views of us doesn't represent our employers. I'm just saying. So
that's a good chat.
Don't come and like, don't come for our jobs just because we say some stupid shit. All right. Our employers are cool. We're the dickheads. Anyway, so when it comes to this side of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I essentially am on the same wavelength as you in the sense that I'm just gonna like say it straight the way it makes sense in my head, right? Like, I feel that trans athletes essentially need to first off get over themselves. And what I mean by that is you guys have to realize that you were born a certain sex, right? No matter what sort of gender reassignment surgeries you do, the hormone therapies that you do, the way you wear your hair, if you get your privates altered, all that sort of stuff. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, like, your birth certificate labels you as a certain sex. And so wanting to be wholeheartedly integrated into this other gender, essentially, or sex, like, it's just not possible. It's not right. Like, we haven't got that far in science to basically enable you to do that. So there needs to be a little bit of like, you know what, although I feel, let's say you're a guy who's transitioned into a girl, like, you gotta be like, look, although I feel like a woman, I need to understand and respect the fact that I was born a man first. And so, get over that thing, right? Once you get over that, then I feel that you can then have something like Coach Tang was saying, where it is like, okay, irrespective of your gender, based off of your sex, this is where you compete. Or I personally think that you should have like trans divisions. I think it makes it so much easier that way. And I know that it kind of quote unquote defeats the whole point of inclusivity, but I'm just like, bruh, I think inclusivity isn't necessarily like everyone should be allowed to do everything that everybody else is doing. I think it's making sure that everyone feels included, right? So for example, that's like the Paralympics, right? The Paralympics is a version of the Olympics specifically for people who are disabled, and that is their chance to feel included, because the fact of the matter is, you put them with able-bodied people and 9 times out of 10 it is a huge disadvantage, right? So you make adjustments to make them feel included. I think the same thing needs to happen with trans athletes as well. You make an adjustment to make them feel included, and I think that like an all trans division in different sports is the best way to go about that. It's the fairest way to go about it as well, because you also then are competing against people who have gone through the same things that you have, right? The same trials and tribulations, they've had the same background, and it's just a more level playing field. It also gives you the opportunity to set records and break boundaries that previously are literally untouched ground, because we've never had an all trans division in any sport as far as I'm aware anyway. So, you get to set the records, you get to set the records, you get to blaze the path, you get to inspire future athletes as well who also decide to be, a trans athlete. And yeah, it's just something new for you to basically create from the ground up, you feel me? Rather than fighting this uphill and, in my opinion, unwinnable battle of being featured in these systems that already exist. You feel me? I also think as well, this is more of a problem on the women's side than the men's side, because I can't think of many ones who went from female to male and are now competing in the men's divisions and are like holding their own. I think I saw something where someone did try that and they got absolutely battered. I think it was an MMA fighter who transitioned from female to male. And they entered the male MMA fight and then just got slaughtered because, you used to be a chick, now you're a guy. And you're getting in the ring with guys who like actually do this, you feel me? So, yeah, create your own division. I think it's much fairer than that. I think that's the fairest way to go about it. I don't know how you feel about that, or because I know some people disagree with that, saying like, oh yeah, it defeats the point of inclusivity. But I'm like, bro, you can't have it all.
Well, I guess you touch on a valid point by having a separate category for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess for me is obviously when you invent a new category, I guess if we just look at this as in terms of a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, do we have a customer base? So how many people are just in the world identify as a trans athlete, or just as trans, in the macro,
just trans,
just as obviously trans or whatever they want to identify as. So obviously, if the population's out of 100, how many of that 100 identify as trans, for starters?
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember reading the statistic properly, it was less than 10% of the population identified as trans. And that's just...
I'm surprised it'd be even that high. I think it'd be even smaller than that.
It might be even smaller than that, I don't know, but it was very, very low in terms of obviously just putting a number on it. So 10 out of 100, or less than 10 out of 100. Okay, so then from those 10, how many of them do sport?
Yeah.
Which would make, I don't know, a generous...
Even half.
A generous estimate would say 3 of that 10.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now of that 3 of 10,
how many compete?
How many compete at elite level sports?
Mm-hmm.
1.
Yeah.
So if we only have, well, like I said, for argument's sake, 100 people in the population, if there's only one elite athlete, how do we create a whole new category if there's only one person competing or minimal people competing?
Yeah.
So then you literally have 5 athletes per category. But then on top of that, that's also doesn't grow into the breakdown of the individual sports themselves. So if you think about how many sports there are, let's just take the Olympics, for instance. Obviously, you've got like 20 different events in swimming.
Yeah.
Gymnastics, you have obviously the 20 subdivides. Yeah, then you've just got the other sports, so football, rugby, netball.
Yeah.
Team sports, which obviously require more than one person in them.
That's gonna be tough.
That's gonna be tough.
Like, imagine having like an all trans football team.
Yeah.
And you have to like organize a match. So that's like what, 22
So
trans athletes
actually no, it's
on the
more.
field.
So basically,
yeah, obviously with the subs as well.
So average football game, you have 11 players on the pitch. You've got, I don't know, 5 to 8 subs on the bench.
I don't even know.
Okay, so that's 19 people, roughly 20 people. Okay, now in order to be some
times that by 2 because obviously 2 sides.
2 sides, so that's 40 high level athletes. And then obviously, if you want to make a competition out of it, you're gonna need more than 2 teams.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna be
Because that's not a league.
Then it's that's just a one-off match.
Yeah.
Essentially. So that for me is a big part of it.
I get. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then, like you said as well, from the business side, like
we haven't touched even the second part of it. So secondly is
who wants to watch
funding.
that shit?
Well, spectators. Okay, we'll go with spectator side.
Yeah.
So secondly, spectators. How many people are going to actually watch these sports? So if we go into, obviously this is a bit of a tangent, but if we go into female sports, okay. So obviously there's also the topic of women. Obviously want to be paid equal to men for doing the same thing in sports. But obviously the financials and the spectator side, which obviously generates the revenue for which players get paid for their performances. Obviously, if the numbers are a lot lower, there's less revenue coming in. So by default, there's less money to be paid to the players.
Yeah.
So obviously, if there's no spectators, then obviously there's no TV deals. There's there's social media.
Yeah.
But obviously that would be a separate topic on its own. Obviously then. No, it's not going to be televised. It'll be on YouTube maybe as a live stream, as like we're doing right now off a phone and just.
Yeah, it'd be way cheaper to do it that way as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's that side, and then obviously, as I just touched, there's the financial side of it. So one, you need obviously the sponsoring of the leagues, so investors into the leagues themselves or the organizations, the structures for competition.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're going to make it global, obviously you need that in lots of different countries.
Yeah.
Okay, and obviously, what happens if we go to a nation which obviously doesn't agree with the concept of trans athletes?
Yeah.
So if we go to I don't want to name a country because I can't think of a country off the top of my head specifically.
I can.
Well, I'm not going to name a specific country, but obviously, if we go with a country that let's just say has more traditional values on the subject, how do you run the same event there?
Yeah.
So then obviously that limits the participation from obviously
like athletes in those places, the viewership in those places, all that stuff.
Exactly. So that's my take on terms of trans separate athletes or leagues. For me, I guess it's the complete opposite way. If we're going to have athletes identify as trans and compete as trans, I'd say if we're going down that whole inclusivity thing, just get rid of all the categories. You'd
have to do that, right?
With like regards to obviously gender or sex. So instead of being men's and women's, it's just one big category. Everybody, you just jump in and play. All right. So that's my take on it. Obviously, that has its own problems and it's
massively
in its own thing. So let's just take obviously. Well, we'll take basketball as an example, as we're both very familiar with
basketball players,
so obviously we have men's, women's league. Okay, so instead of creating a trans league, just put them all together, and then we'll have just one big league.
So guys, girls, trans, all in one league.
Yeah, even mixed if you wanted.
Yeah.
So and then obviously they just battle it out. But I have a sneaky suspicion if that does happen, quite a lot of obviously trans and women's teams will obviously not be as successful as they currently are in their separate, let's say separate divisions or.
Yeah, because essentially what you'd have to do as well is you would have to incentivize teams to take female and trans athletes essentially to build up the rest of the roster.
Not necessarily.
Because otherwise, why would I bother picking you? Like, all right, let's say that it's a basketball team, right?
But
and I have to draft my players.
Yeah, but this is the thing. When it comes to elite sports, you don't pick because you want X, Y, Z. You pick because they're the best at what they do.
Exactly.
So if everybody's all in one big list,
yeah,
and you just break them down by their individual stats,
yeah,
you just go, I want the top 50. Okay, we'll separate them top 50. That's all the elite athletes.
Yeah.
But obviously, by doing so, that excludes certain people. Obviously.
Yep. Most of which would they're going to be women and like the trans athletes that transition from male, from it'll be the people that transition from female to male. Those ones will get excluded most likely because
depends. I guess it depends on the sport as well.
Of course.
So obviously, different sports require different attributes.
Yeah.
So obviously, having a female biological body was better in some sports or some fields of sports than having a genetically male body. So obviously, depending on the sport, then that makes a big difference into it.
Yep. I mean, just like you said, the problem with that is that just if you integrate all genders into the same competition, league, whatever you want to call it, I think it creates more problems than just like having your trans league. At least that's the way I see it.
Well, no. That's like I agree. I definitely agree there. But then, like I said, it's a case of pros and cons. So obviously, if we do we go down the trans leagues. Obviously, as I broke down before, we just need all the structures to be put in place for them.
Yeah.
But then obviously, if we jump the other side of the line and we put everybody in, all the structures are there already. It's just a case of, by default of the process, athletes will be excluded.
Yeah.
So does that technically make it more inclusive or less inclusive?
Yeah.
Because on the surface, it's more inclusive because everybody's taking part. But then obviously because it's high level sports, then obviously those who don't excel will be filtered out.
And then I think that the point that you're making as well, it touches on this one thing that I came across before, which was like equality versus equity. And I can't remember exactly the difference between the two, but I think equity was like, I think equality was giving everybody the same thing, whereas equity was making sure that everybody was on the same level.
Yes.
And that's the big difference. So it's like, if you give everybody this league, right, the structure, you put everybody in there, it's equality, right? Like everybody gets a fair chance in this league. But your fair chance is just like access to that league essentially. And there's nothing that's been done within it to make sure that you get to match up to the levels of people that just basically outclass you in that. Whereas the approach that I'm trying to take is more like the equity side of things, where it's like we're giving you your own version of this so everybody is on the same playing field. But like I said, without the structures in place already, it then becomes really, really tough and damn near unfeasible essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking as well, if you are let's say a football fan, right? What is the incentive for you to watch a trans league football match over just like men's league football or even women's league football?
Well, to be fair, like I don't even think that we need to talk about incentives. So if we just look at the current structure as it is, okay, we already have men's football, we already have women's football.
Yeah.
Okay, so with men's football, there are however many billions of people watching already, men and women. Okay, how many people are watching women's football?
I couldn't even tell you. But way less.
Way less. And I'm assuming most of the viewership for the women's, don't quote me on this, is going to be majority males.
Yeah.
So obviously if we take the rough divide of this 50% males, 50% females, if the majority obviously of women's football is male and women don't even want to watch other women play, what percentage would actually be interested in watching trans? As you said, what percentage would actually consider watching trans?
Yeah.
Sports. So, yeah.
Yeah, it gets. I obviously admit it. It gets tough wanting to see that sort of stuff, and I always try to look at both sides of the argument for these things, or try to flip the way I look at it as well, because I'm like, what would it be like seeing a whole bunch of guys of girls that used to be guys, like seeing a whole pitch of them playing a sport, right? There's who'd want to watch that, versus as well, like, who'd want to watch a whole bunch of guys that used to be girls playing football as well? Like, it gets tough to make a trans league happen when you factor in all the stuff you're talking about, the stuff that I'm talking about. But I don't know, it's just that I feel that in terms of even taking away, because we're looking at the professional level, it's like, if we take that away and we look at just like making things fair for people, that's the only thing I can think of making it fair. Because even if we dumb it down to, let's say, your everyday, just regular person who plays sports, like, I don't know it, but okay, so then here's the thing that gets tough over here, right? Because
it's even tougher.
It's even tougher because when you're not at that elite level, the levels of skill are so much closer. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a woman who balls just as good as any guy out here at our level. Like, when you're outside of a pro level, you feel me? Like, there are girls over here that can ball better than us.
So my question is, how are we defining pro level?
Well, I guess pro would be.
Are we taking it by its traditional definition of you being paid to do the sport, or are we saying they're pro because they're at I guess at a specific point in their skill level?
I would say that specific skill level, to the point where they make that, like, I want to say full-time job, but it's not really, because
but that's exactly the point. Is when we say pro. We say, obviously, you've got the actual traditional definition, which is
you're getting paid.
You're getting paid to do it. That's what makes you a professional at your sport.
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously, if you don't get paid, by definition, you are an amateur. But then obviously, you have people who obviously, I guess, could be considered better than pro athletes.
Yeah.
But obviously, because they don't get paid, they're not defined as pros.
Yeah.
So obviously, depending on how we want to define the term pro,
well, I guess, man, I don't know, because if we go, because then what the hell's a semi-pro? Because semi-pros also get paid for their stuff, so depending on the league anyway.
Yeah, so I guess I don't know what the actual definition for semi-pro is, but if I were to hazard a guess, I would say you were paid, but you don't do it full time.
Okay, so we're talking as like a full-time, part-time, and then
so basically you're part-time. So basically you're a part-time athlete. So you get paid to play, but obviously you don't do it as a full-time job. You have a secondary job on the side. So I'd say that would probably be the definition of semi-pro.
Okay, cool. Let's go with that definition then. So we're talking pro, semi-pro, and then amateur in terms of you getting paid to do this full-time, part-time, or you don't get paid at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
If we're going by that definition, and we're looking at just then your amateurs, right? So we're looking at people that don't get paid to do this.
Yep.
Again, I feel that the levels within that can be seriously blurred. You can have guys that are better than girls. You can have girls that are better than guys. You can have trans that are better than both of them. Like it. Yeah. So in terms of separating, then basically this is me admitting that separating them isn't as helpful. Essentially, just because like I said, a trans athlete could come over here and just be better than a lot of other athletes, like amateurs in the amateur leagues. You feel me? So separating them isn't as easy. But then I just think, okay, let's go with, because I know there was the example of the swimming team. I want to say it was a swimming team or a diving team. I can't fully remember, but I think it was a swimming team in a university where they had one trans athlete competing, one someone who transitioned from male to female, so female trans athlete, who basically killed the entire competition, and all the ladies who were competing in that were saying, like, this is unfair. It's like going against a man. We stand absolutely no chance. They're amateurs, so they're not getting paid to do this. Still, obviously competitors. Still, obviously athletes. Like, is that fair? That setup, you feel me? Like letting a trans athlete compete over there, and be able to either get whooped or do the whooping to these amateurs, and it's absolutely fine. Like, should we segregate them? Should we integrate them? Like, how does it work on that side of stuff for you? Because that's the tough bit.
So if we're going on to swimming specifically, then I guess if we're doing in terms of distance races in swimming, so we do front crawl, backstroke, butterfly, relay, whatever, and then all the other sports. So where it comes to obviously distance, so what factors which factors within your physical body contribute to you being successful? Obviously bigger limbs, being taller, meaning you got bigger levels, meaning you can travel farther. Obviously muscle mass. Obviously if you have the capacity to have stronger muscles, bigger muscles, that means you can generate more force to propel you through the water. Obviously lung capacity, because obviously every time you go up when you're swimming and you go up to breathe, obviously the aquadynamics of your body slows you down. So being able to obviously hold your breath for longer to travel keeps you more streamlined for you to cover more distance. So obviously lung capacity helps for that. So obviously I guess if you're a trans male, is it trans female?
I think you're talking about male to female. That's trans female.
Trans female, yeah. So I guess that's where they would have the advantage. But then obviously if we take the other side of swimming, which is obviously like diving, so when they do like the acrobatic stuff off like the hive, obviously your size, your muscle mass, your lung capacity plays less of a role, but obviously your flexibility, obviously the degree to which you can manipulate your body to perform the different maneuvers required in diving to get a high score, then I guess the flip side applies. So obviously if you're a woman, So if you're a man transitioning to a woman, those physical attributes, I guess, would give them a disadvantage just on a surface level. So obviously we're not going to dive into deeply because we don't have that information, so I'm not going to touch on that. But if you kind of get my gist on that.
But then, I mean, so there's
pros and cons depending on the event itself.
Yeah. But then what I'm asking then is, like, should we still let them compete in these things then? Bearing in mind that they might have advantages or disadvantages depending on what sport they're going into. Like, okay, let's take...
Well, then that just goes back to what I said right at the very beginning.
That we should just get rid of everything.
No. Like, in terms of my baseline viewpoint.
Oh, so
we're just like, if we want to see the best people compete, let them compete.
Yeah. So that's what I mean, like getting rid of the barriers and just letting everyone.
If they want to compete, let them compete. Obviously, there's things are going to happen as a byproduct of letting them compete, which we're seeing at the moment. Obviously, like you said, with the swimming, obviously, trans athlete came in, started whooping ass, winning everything, and then obviously, I say biological females or cis women, they're starting to obviously complain, like you said, it's like swimming as a man. It's unfair, but that's what happens when you obviously include them in the competitions. So for me, it's just a case of if they want to compete, let them compete. Obviously, if the governing bodies for each of the sports have their own obviously requirements for you to obviously take part. So I think it's like you have to take a year's worth of like hormone treatment or something.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so you got to do a year's worth of hormone treatment in order to obviously qualify to compete in obviously the other side of sports.
Yeah, that category, yeah.
That category. So obviously they have those regulations, but like I said at the beginning, just let them compete, and then obviously the best will be the best. And so be it. And then at the end of the day, it's a case of, well, we've gone down one of the two pathways. It's either we create a separate category or we just include everybody.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, pick your poison.
Yeah. I guess the thing that bothers me is that, first of all, this is something that clearly affects one side more than the other. Because if we're talking about like male sports, like male category, there's going to be very few, if any, trans males that can out compete like a natural male as well. So we don't really have that problem of trans athletes dominating our sports. You feel me? Like you go, let's say like NBA for example.
Okay, so and then like I said before, it depends on the sport
Yeah,
itself,
yeah, 100.
depending on obviously what attributes give you an advantage.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so if we just take basketball for instance, yeah, like what you're gonna say is I'm in agreement with essentially.
Yeah. Like as guys, we're not gonna really worry about trans males coming in and taking our spots. Whereas as ladies, there's a little bit more of a worry. Like if LeBron James tomorrow decides to become trans,
you know what?
Right?
So what they should do is just get all like the retired NBA players.
Yeah, just make them all trans.
Just now identify as women, and then
they just run the WNBA.
They just form a team and they go in. Pretty sure they'll win a large majority of their games.
Yeah. They're the champions back to back for many years afterwards.
And I don't want to say it like it's a case of like it sucks to be a woman, but if that were the case, then
sucks to be a woman.
Yeah.
So like that is the problem. You feel me?
Yeah.
And like you're saying, if we just let them keep competing, then eventually we're gonna get to a point where it boils to a head, and then that's where decisions have got to be made. So for the time being, just let them compete, and then you're saying that
just literally let them compete because if we just let them compete and we'll just let results dictate the future of it, then obviously you're gonna get your byproduct, which is whatever it is.
Okay, so then again, it like I said, it depends on the sport because certain sports, the trans athlete will have certain advantages and certain ones will have disadvantages. So it's not necessarily even about like which sex you are, but rather what sport you're playing. But let's say for argument's sake that pretty much 9 times out of 10 when it comes to like sports where the females are playing and like a male athlete comes in to play these sports, or a trans male athlete comes in to play these sports, chances are they're going to take the top spots, right?
Yeah.
What does that then do for the women in that sport? Because let's say I'm a girl who's playing, I don't know, flipping volleyball, right?
Yeah.
I'm playing volleyball. There's this one trans player on the other team who is completely crushing us every single fucking time.
Yeah.
And they're literally single-handedly crushing the entire league. That would then make me not want to play. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, bro, there's no point in playing because there is such a clear disadvantage and there's nothing being done to essentially safeguard me as a female. So then, yeah, there's just no point in playing. And I feel that you run the risk of driving people away from the sport. So are you then saying that that's basically what should happen? Like,
well, I guess that's, like I said, that's a byproduct of the decision that's been made.
Yeah.
But I guess when it comes to high level athletes, like I guess there's a baseline level of competitiveness regardless.
Yeah.
So I reckon in the short term, I'd probably say people would want to try and obviously compete against that to say no, like I'm not having it. I'm going to beat them next time round, whatever, and they're going to go at it.
Yeah.
Then obviously over the course of time, when it just becomes, I guess, abundantly clear that it doesn't matter how much training or practice you do, you're not going to beat them. Then it'll come. I guess it will come to what you just said. People will be like, well, what's the point in competing if there's a 0% chance of me actually succeeding?
So I know that was happening in MMA. There was that one trans athlete that like was crushing her opponents.
Oh yeah. So I know that. I remember that one. So yeah, she was literally just. I think she was like 35% wins in the men's category when competing as a male, and then obviously when transitioning and then competing in the women's category, I believe was winning like 95% of the fights, if all of them. And it wasn't even like they were close fights; they were just.
It was like I think she shattered the skull of one of her opponents.
Yeah,
I mean, so completely crushed the skull.
Literally, it's like one punch man. Just
yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, because by that point, we're not even dealing with like, just let them compete and the best of the best. Like, we're now risking people's safety at this point.
Yeah. So with regards to contact sports, yes. So like obviously like combat sports, American football, rugby, like sports where you actually have physical contact against other people, then yeah, there is obviously like the health and safety of the athletes. But then I guess the baseline is when you take part in those sports, you know there are certain risks and challenges that come with it. As I guess what they say in How to Train Your Dragon, it's a occupational hazard.
Mm-hmm.
So linking it back to basketball, if I'm a center, all right, and I see, I don't know, Kobe Bryant coming to dunk on me in the middle of the lane, am I just gonna let him dunk it, or am I gonna try and contest it?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go and contest it, chances are I might block it. Chances are he's gonna post to me.
Yeah.
And then that's about and being dunked on, being on TikTok, being on Instagram, getting posted, being in the magazines. It's an occupational hazard of the position you play in your sport.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, it's dicey though. It's very, very dicey because, like I said, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
But then, and like I said, we're talking about like professional competing.
Yeah.
So I guess. But then I guess if we take it down the level and we go to university or collegiate level sports where people are still growing and developing into their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take like teenage sports, so between the ages of, I don't know, 14 to 17, where athletes are growing into their bodies, I guess it makes a little bit more, like less of a difference.
Yeah.
I guess, because obviously if you take the hormone therapy during obviously the puberty part of your growth, and obviously you're taking the hormones, then your body will obviously grow based on the hormone levels in your system.
Yeah.
So then I guess it might equal out in that front. I'm not too sure, but I would guess it would.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously taking hormone therapy as a teenager, for me, this is a separate topic, which I think we'll cover in another episode. Personally, I don't think teenagers should be taking hormone therapy as teenagers.
Yep.
Like, once you're an adult, like, you're over, I don't know, 18, 21, whatever you want to set that bar as. Like, once you finish developing, like, and going through puberty, then you do the hormone treatment. Go for it.
Yeah, but no, I mean, that's the problem though, right?
Yeah, then like, obviously, between, those teenagers, for me, I'm not a fan of it.
But I mean, this is obviously getting into a different topic, but it's like, you know, you want to essentially be taking the hormone therapy as early as possible because that then enables you to transition basically more effectively. Because, you know, let's say I start transitioning right now at the age of 30 with this, you know what I mean, beard in tow.
You just baited yourself out.
I did as well. Whatever, it is what it is. You guys know what I'm saying. Anyway. So, but you know, me transitioning at this age, like I've been a man for 30 years. You feel me? Like everything is set. So then to essentially undo that and try to basically, it's like trying to just paint over the top of what is already just like set. You feel me? Rather than while the foundations are being set, you're then manipulating those foundations. Like that's why they do it early.
Yeah.
I'm by the way, I'm in agreement with you as well though. I do feel that you know, doing the hormone therapy so early in life, I get the reasoning behind doing it, but I'm just not a fan of that approach.
Yeah.
Especially because so many complications that people don't talk about. There are things that people discover later on in life as they're growing as people that makes them think like, oh wait, you know what, actually this isn't what I thought it would be, this isn't what I signed up for, yada yada. Like, bro, there was this one video I saw of this trans male, so it's a female who went to male, and he was, I want to say like 21 or 23, balding, bad, right? But he's like,
the balding doesn't necessarily come from your hormone levels.
No, but it was because of how much testosterone he was taking.
Okay. So it was click up.
It was click up because of the hormone therapy, right?
Fine.
And he was now in a position where he was like, because people are like, you know, in their comments and stuff saying like, oh yeah, why don't you just stop or transition back or this that, and he was just there saying like, you know, I'm now too far gone into it to be able to go back now. So there's not even a point in me going back. Like the damage has been done.
Yeah.
So even if I wanted to reverse it, I now can't. And it's now like, you know, because you now started your hormone therapy and you've now gone through the experience, but you realize now the experience isn't what you thought it would be.
Yeah.
Now you're fucked. You know what I mean? You can't go back to being a lady, and you can't, and you don't want to continue being a guy. So now you're fucked. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you'd probably just taken a little bit more time essentially in your life to figure out whether this is what you actually want to do, and you just let your body finish growing and all that sort of stuff. Like, if you just done that, then maybe you could have avoided all of that. You feel me?
No, I get it, because like I've obviously seen like stuff on social media and stuff. Quite a lot of, from what I've seen, is quite a lot of people who have transitioned across have, I guess, quite a lot of them have said that they want to transition back, and they do so because obviously they haven't quite got to the point of there's no way back. They still can go back. So basically they just stop the treatment. But obviously that in itself is obviously an individual decision. But in order for you, I guess, to make that individual decision, as an individual, you should know who you are before you do those things.
Facts.
So this is like we said, when it comes to obviously as a teenager going through hormone therapy, do you as an individual know who you are as a person already before doing it? Because obviously for me, obviously as a teenager growing up, I wasn't sure on who I was as an individual. So then adding in a bunch of other things into the equation makes it more complicated.
Absolutely.
I guess now I'm at a point in my life where I know who I am. Obviously I might make some minor adjustments here and there, but I know who I am, and if I was supposedly going to go through the whole treatment thing, then obviously it's a different topic altogether.
And I mean, again, getting into a different discussion as well, but it's like, you know, I kind of feel that even this lane of being able to go down, you know, what gender am I essentially, that is, in my opinion, a fairly recent development. You feel me? If we didn't have social media the way we've got it, if we didn't have science the way we had it, this sort of just frame of mind discussion, identity crisis wouldn't even be nearly as prominent as it now is. I think of, for example, this one thing that I saw with regards to a book that was written on multiple personality disorder. So this one lady was suffering with multiple personality disorder, and and prior to this point, it had never been documented before. Right. So you had this one person who had MPD. They then made a book about this person with MPD. Once this book hit the mainstream, that's when a whole bunch of people started coming forward to say, hey, I've got MPD, hey, I've got MPD, hey, I've got MPD. Which then forced a whole bunch of people to now start having to try diagnosing this and finding out what exactly is MPD and what isn't MPD.
As science does,
And so then eventually you now have all these people now claiming to have MPD, and it's now just out here. Ooh, yeah. Essentially, if we just go back to the original topic at hand, which was... because I mean, we were on a tangent, to be fair. So if we just go back to the original topic of trans athletes in sports, right? I think the consensus between us two essentially is that first off, nobody should be excluded from competing. That's the first thing. People should be allowed to compete. If you're a trans athlete, you do deserve to.
If anything, if you're an athlete, you should just compete.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yeah. The point where we differ is you saying everybody should basically just be bundled into one, and then just the best of the best.
I guess I didn't really state my point per se. I just said.
Go ahead if you want to. Then yeah.
No, I'm not. Like I just said there's two sides to it. So
there's
there's the avenue that you said. Then their own box.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of the equation, which is just put everybody in the same box.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, I just don't care.
Yeah.
If you want to compete.
Compete.
If you can get to an elite level, get there and compete. Show your stuff. That's it.
And then
for me,
whatever complications then come out of that, you then rectify them at that point in time.
Well, I don't rectify it.
Yeah.
The governing bodies or whatever, those guys sort that all out. Then you tackle that hurdle as it comes. Obviously, you can try and obviously, I want to say predict, but you can try and like foresee or plan for as many situations as possible that could happen, and have some sort of like even if it's just like a doodled plan of what to do, at least then you have some kind of idea of what to do and how to deal with it. Not just how to deal with it, how to manage it, as to being like, oh crap, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick. So let's say you're in a situation, right? Because you're a basketball coach at the moment, right? So, and I thought I'm aware you coach a female team, right?
No, I don't coach a female team, but I'm in and around female.
Okay, cool. So let's say that there's a female team that you're nearby where they have a trans athlete there. And they whoop your team, bro. Like they destroy your team because of this one trans athlete. Like it's literally just give it to them, let them work, and then they just murderize your team. How are you feeling as a coach then? Are you kind of just like, look, it is what it is, like lick your wounds and just ball on, like that's just a 1L you got to take, but then you still got the rest of the season to go, sort of thing. Like how would you deal with that?
Like obviously sport, like if we're doing it in terms of that specific situation, obviously the league is set up as one. You see each team twice, and you play one home, one away game. So essentially, if it's a case that this trans athlete is just whooping butt against everybody, then it's just a case of that's 2 hours. You're just gonna have to
hold. Time,
But then obviously, if we beat everybody else, then in terms of league rankings, it's fine. We'd still be, I don't know, second, third, whatever it is. If we're beating everybody else. So I guess in the short term, it's one of those things you just got to bite the bullet for, because they've met every eligibility criteria there is to be able to compete. So they've jumped through all those hurdles already. They're competing. So why would you want to, I guess, complain midway through the season and go, this is not fair? It's something that we need to be tackled
before everything started,
by the governing body before the season starts. So obviously once the season's over and they've got the summer to kind of figure out what to do, and then obviously make a decision, then we go, okay, fine. But if it's like I said, you've got hurdles to entry to requirements, then it's just you just got to take it.
But then wouldn't you feel a certain type of way if like you get to the finals and that team is there as well, and once again they just whoop your ass, and you kind of just feel like, oh bro, like we cleared the rest of the league, we had a legitimate chance to win the championship if it wasn't for this one trans athlete in this team that's like clearly got the advantage over us. Like, wouldn't you feel some type of way about that then?
But then I guess there's the game planning as well.
Facts.
Because especially in team sports, you can game plan. So basically, obviously in basketball, you can literally throw someone on, like, to defend them, like face guard them the whole time, and obviously minimize their touches of the ball. So obviously there's 5 people on the court, only the person with the ball can score. So if this person is averaging, I don't know, 50 points a game, so that's roughly 25 shots a game, or if they're all layups. All right. So obviously, if we limit their touches, so and then they only end up getting, I don't know, 10 looks, and they make all 10. That's 20 points.
Like there's a way to get around all of that.
Basically. There is. There's a you can scheme and get around it. So like, put it this way, like, that's where if we just, even if we don't even talk about trans athletes, if we wind back time to like the NBA, so we had Shaq. Nobody could stop Shaq. As soon as he got into the painted area, no one could physically hold Shaq. So what did they do? They came up with Hack a Shaq. Send him to the line, make him score from the line. Okay, and then obviously he's not so good at the line.
So basically, what we're saying is Hack a Chan, isn't it? Just
Hack a Chan.
Oh man,
Hack a Shaq.
Hack a Trans, fam. Hack a Trans. That's basically what that's Coach Tang's game plan is. Hack a Trans.
No, it's not hack them at all. It is called a face guard.
And cancel.
Yeah, we're cancelled. Okay, just before we leave, this episode's been sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
Hey, stop it, bro. Raid Shadow Legends, Raycons, flipping. What's another one? Hymns. Flipping HelloFresh. Oh gosh, like no. Do you know what I wanted to do for this for the Forbidden Juice though. I was gonna do like fake endorsements, basically. Well, maybe not fake endorsements, but definitely like endorsements of shit that we actually wish we were endorsing, and yeah, basically just do that and hope that somebody then comes along and be like, hey guys, we like the way you do endorsements. You want to do one for us? Like fake it till you make it sort of thing. Like literally, I would straight up like do like, yo, this episode is not sponsored by, but we're still gonna endorse Supermalt, and I'll just like do a whole thing on like Supermalt and that.
And we just gotta have like line on like rags Supermalt and just have.
Yeah, why not, innit? Like, but fucking, oh, maybe not that, because then if we're doing like sponsorships for fucking like a Blue Chew or some shit, like I'm not gonna have like a brand of Blue Chew.
Like you just said, if it's just for stuff that we want,
yeah,
then you can just put whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, could do. Like, but I'm thinking of doing that. I think that's
I guess
it's worthwhile, innit? You know what I mean? Like you got that shoe brand that you work with, right? The sports brand thing, kind of.
That's a topic for off camera.
Yeah, fine, but
topic for off camera.
But anyway, look. Long story short, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of trans athletes in sports? Do you think that they need their own league? Do you think that they should be allowed to integrate into the current leagues? Do you think that the way the leagues are right now should be basically restructured and reworked so that it's just everybody against everybody? Like, what is your opinion on this topic here? Feel free to let us know in the comments below. You can hit us on our social media, so Instagram, Twitter. We also have an email address as well, so you guys can hit us on that as well, and of course the YouTube channel. So feel free to get in contact with us any way you feel like it. But until the next episode, it has been a pleasure bringing back the Forbidden Juice. This is Coach Tang. It's your boy AD, and we are out. So until then, catch you guys in the next episode. Deuces.
One second.
Yeah.
If you're watching us on YouTube, remember hit like and subscribe. Hit the
you're one of
bells.
them. You're one of them. No, don't be one of them. I intentionally don't do that because it's so cringe. Y'all guys, make sure you smash that like button. It really helps out a lot. And be sure to subscribe. Please give me a subscription because it helps the channel out a lot. Bruh, look, listen.
I had to do it once.
Fine. But all I'm saying is, like, for like the 2.5 people that are watching us, innit? Much love to you, man, innit? Feel free to tell people about this, about the channel and that. But if you don't subscribe, do you know what? I get it. If you don't like the video, guess what? I get it. In fact, dislike the video for all I care. You think I give a fuck? Dislike the video, bruv. I don't give a damn. But until then,
they have a dislike button anymore.
No, they still do.
Do they?
Yeah. They do. No, they don't have the bar.
Oh, the bar.
Yeah. So you know the little bar that was the
the green red bar.
They got rid of that. Yeah. But you can still dislike a video if you don't like it. So it will be that little metric for me to see, innit?
Yeah.
So for me saying hacker trans.
Oh my god.
Oh, cancelled. Yeah,
we're cancelled.
Yep. Yo, guys. Hopefully, Ryan cancelled. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Deuces.